You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, and join our group with the exact same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. The views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics, and welcome to episode 239 of the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker. Another installment of the Cram-In edition. I'm Taylor Phillips with my co-host Ed Smith on Facebook Messenger, as always. Thanks so much for being on here with me, Ed. How was your weekend?
Well, if you go by from this past Tuesday night, all shades of disappointing, to say the least. I think it's quite obvious that, this is a topic we can't really, try to ignore because, this is literally something that the whole entire world has been talking about this whole week. It was going to be talked about regardless of whatever result of this week's presidential election. But, some of it's still yet to completely seep in, but gradually I guess it will. A number of things that I got to get on my mind real quick before we get on the show. Am I disappointed? To say the least, yes. Am I a registered Democrat? Yes. Did I vote for Hillary Clinton? Yes. So you can see why this was not a good night for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people on Tuesday night would tend to agree with me on that. I've got a part of me still hoping that something unexpected happens again next month when the Electoral College decides to do it more formally, and they do a surprise and formally decide to elect Hillary instead. But if that should not be the case, and indeed we do end up on January 20th with President Trump, I can't believe I'm saying that, a number of things have to happen. I think we as a nation, no matter what, we do have to come together and we have to unite. You can say, as long as some of the extreme things that, again, for a man who, long story short, I thought was completely unfit for the office that he was seeking, namely, not just him personally, but just some of the policies that he was bringing up. Those I hope do not come to fruition. If they try to, if he tries to pass them, I'm sure you can expect a lot of fight from the left, myself included. But again, it's going to sound flip floppy or whatever, or preachy or whatever. I don't care. This is just how I'm getting it out on my chest to kind of comprehend what happened. If there is a way that through this election, through this presidency, that he does somehow do a good job. I'm going to use the old analogy from John Wayne. I didn't vote for him, but he's my president, and I hope he does a good job. If you go by that analysis, as long as, this isn't a third world country by the end of his term or by the end of 2 years, something like that, that's all we all can hope for. And if you're a Democrat, hey, this is your chance to get better, to do something better in 2018 and 2020. Regardless, at the end of the day, no matter what result, no matter what opinion, we are all Americans. We are all in this together, do better or worse. So we got to do our best, stick this out, unite, stand, and persevere.
Yeah, some may view Donald Trump as a racist and a discriminator, and some may view Hillary Clinton for a treason committer. She should go and say she should go to jail for treason. But which would have been the lesser of two evils anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would rather, if you want to do the comparison, you could say, hey, there's a person who used the wrong email server versus a guy who, made so many discriminatory and flat out, in some instances, racist remarks against people of color, who has a vice president now who, is very anti-gay, who Like I say, he himself wanted to put up a wall, ban people, deport people, makes fun of people. You would think common sense would tell you that's not a man you want representing your country on a global scale. But people have decided. I'm not going to dispute that. You can say, in that sense, you could say, I accept the results of what happened Tuesday night. I may not accept the fact that he is president or president-elect, but if it comes down to it, hey, we got to do what we can to stick together. But very, 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 very shocking news that, that was too big for us to ignore one way or another this week.
Yeah, definitely the case here. But only one had to be decided out of the two, and it happened to be Donald Trump. Congratulations to him regardless. And we got to move forward with him, I guess.
Move forward, period. No matter what, we just got to move forward. We're, like I said, we're in this together, through thick and thin. Got to find a way to compromise, persevere, and strive. Whether it be finding different mediums, as long as it's legal, or differences to take our mind off a little bit by bit, that's fine. And hey, that's why we have sports. So in this instance, thank God for sports.
Yeah, we're going to get to it right away. Got college football, the Lions. Lots of college football and lots of Lions, plus plenty of Red Wings and some Pistons as well as and some Tigers off-season news too. And a little bit of college basketball as the season is about to get underway before we wrap it up with 10 questions. But first and foremost, the Michigan Wolverines stay undefeated yet again.
Touchdown, Michigan!
They went back to their dominance again with a whopping 8 touchdowns to put the smackdown on the Maryland Terrapins 59-3 at the Big House Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor. Michigan dominated in almost everything, 660 total yards for them to Maryland's 367. Rushing yards, 273 to 78 Michigan, and 387 to 289 passing. That's almost even. 31 first downs for Michigan, 19 for Maryland. Only 2 turnovers in that game belonging to Maryland. Possession time, not so one-sided. 32-12 Michigan, 27-48 Maryland. 6 penalties apiece. Wilton Spate, 19 for 24 for 263 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Davion Smith, 19 carries for 114 yards and 3 scores. J.U. Chesson, 5 catches for 112 and a score. Jake Butt, 4 for 77 and a score. The only intriguing stat for the Terps was Caleb Rowe, 12 of 23 for 203 yards, along with this 2 interceptions. It was just all Michigan right there.
Yeah, it was. It was basically from the get-go, Michigan, you knew coming into it they were going to have a much easier task compared to, like, say, Michigan State or, even Illinois, and that's a team that they only gave up 8 points to. But you kind of figured, this is probably a game where their defense would really make a big impact, a big statement saying, hey, what happened against Michigan State? We're going to make an improvement game by game, week by week. And since then, where they gave up 3 offensive touchdowns to the Spartans on that day. And now, the past 2 full games now, they've given up a combined 1. That was last week. Actually, rather the week before against Illinois, which led to, again, the 41-8 score that we saw. But still, this was a defense that I guess you could say had its own chip on its shoulder, wanted to prove itself, and boy, did it ever. Once again, being established first and foremost at the trenches, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest strength for the whole team on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, with your offense, or rather with your defense first. Once you stop the run to begin with, it puts your opponent in a situation, a third and medium, third and long, where you can pin yours back, bring the blitz. And by the way, with an excellent secondary that you have, you don't have to worry about leaving some of your guys on an island. So it was essentially a win-win as you can get for the Michigan defense. Gaining back some confidence, as well as, just another, I guess you could say, formal scrimmage snap, so to speak. This has been, you could say this is their chance to lay low and get some reps up as they get ready potentially for a big collision course against for Ohio State. Now, back on the offense, like I mentioned with the Lions, how they moved, how they worked, how they performed overall, doing a great job of giving Wilton Speight all the protection that he needed, which in turn, in many ways, set up the day that he had. I believe he had 200. Let me see. Excuse me. Yeah, right. He had his 260 or so yards, 262, 266, whatever it was. He had that all in the, might have been 292. Excuse me. He had that all in the first half. Something that hadn't been seen, in at least since Denard Robinson did it in 2010 against Illinois, where he threw for 262 in the first half. So between Speight showing great poise in the pocket, finding open guys, spreading the well, finding multitude of weapons, and that's another thing that you like about his development week by week. He's not being too reliant on one guy. One week it could be Amara Darboh, another J.U. Chesson, another Jake Butt. Sometimes he could find a Chris Evans or an Eddie McDoom in the slot on the screen and let them use their speed to get them good yardage. You can always depend on his running back, Davion Smith, not just to hand the ball off, give him big bruising runs that keeps the defense on their heels, but also, if you notice, Davion Smith has been an absolute beast in terms of blocking for pass protection whenever defenses try to bring the blitz. So, and also, you got to give credit to Speight himself. He has his own, like I said, deceptive athleticism where he looks like he's dead to rights, but he somehow finds a way to use his length, use his frame to get away from the defender, avoid a sack, extend the play, and it leads to something good happening for Michigan. And for instance, on one of the touchdowns that were scored, Wilton Speight with his 6'6" frame basically tried to prove that white men can in fact jump when he did his own version of the Jordan jump man. Hop, skipping, and jumping his way across the goal line into the end zone for a touchdown. So that's the kind of confidence that, as a Michigan fan, you wanted to see in Speight all year long, and now it's finally paying dividends and coming up right where you need it to be. You need this kind of momentum from him as you're going in to the home stretch of your schedule, which, like I said, includes that trip to Columbus against Ohio State. So between your offense, your offense is going to be on point, but your quarterback now finally coming into his own, your defense doing an absolute monster job as usual, everything clicking on cylinders. Hell, even your special teams, your field goal, Kenny Allen's starting to make kicks again. He's getting his confidence back. It's all leading to what can you do with the finish line. And here's what they got. We've got Iowa. We're going to get that a little bit of, but they got them coming up. It seems like, a relative safe bet. As long as something crazy doesn't happen, they'll take care of business there. Then after that, you got Indiana at home. Should be an easy layup. Yes, I know. 48-41, double overtime last year, but that was a far different Michigan team that we see this year. Plus, it's in Ann Arbor, so I think you consider that as close to a lock as possible. And then, here we go, last game of the year, Ohio State. That will be the biggie. That will be the true question because, aside from the potential Big Ten championship game the next week, presumably against Wisconsin again, a match I'm not really looking forward to seeing again, but if it happens, we'll see what will happen. We'll see what transpires there. But with Ohio State, that will be their definite big test, the biggest test that we'll see with them, at least for the regular season, because we don't know what lies ahead of them for postseason play, whether it be the Big Ten Conference title or possibly in the college football playoff. Because, like I said, they are in the driver's seat. If they went out, they're in the top 4 guaranteed. So it all depends. Can they not get too ahead of themselves to recognize, hey, they still have games ahead of you. Can we get to the finish line? And with Jim Harbaugh as a head coach and a tremendous coaching staff that they have, coaching these players up to their highest potential and then some, I think it's safe to say you feel pretty confident of their chances of having a strong finish as we go through the last regular season play.
And speaking of the upcoming schedule, let's focus on Iowa first. Michigan is going on the road to Iowa City in a hostile environment to put their undefeated season on the line against the 5-4 Hawkeyes, who are 3-3 in the Big Ten. The last time the Hawkeyes upset an undefeated team was at Kinnick Stadium in a night game in Iowa City against the then undefeated Penn State Nittany Lions must have been 2012. I don't remember exactly what year. But
I believe 2008. It was 2008. Penn State was 9-0. Iowa was 5-4. I believe that mirrors the situation. That it does mirror the situation that we see for this weekend. But continue.
Yeah, but the Wolverines today evidently have more power, far more power, and stouter defense than Penn State had back in 2008, as you mentioned, Ed. Just last week, the Hawkeyes, speaking of the devil, the Hawkeyes got thrashed by the Nittany Lions 41-14 last week. The Hawkeyes really don't have much of a chance against those Wolverines, even in their own home turf, in their home stadium.
Yeah, it doesn't look quite so good if you're an Iowa fan. That showcase against Penn State was beyond embarrassing for a multitude of reasons. It looked like they got hit in the mouth and never recovered, and probably just gave up midway through. Saquon Barkley looking outstanding. McSorley, that was the quarterback for Penn State. I don't know how, right? You let him go off against you, so imagine Will Spade, with the new confidence he's showing, what he could potentially do. This is a game where I will mention, though, there are a few things that I'm not going to be too ahead of myself saying, oh, yeah, they got this guaranteed, because like I said, when you're this close to the finish line, any minor thing that could trip you up can and will trip you up. So there's a few things to consider. This is my keys to the game if you're Michigan, and it all centers around one thing in terms of the atmosphere, how it could play into potential gigantic upset. First and foremost, turnover battle. I believe Iowa is one of the worst teams in the Big Ten in terms of forcing turnovers. Then in Michigan State as well.
Oh, baby.
We'll get to the Spartans in a little bit, but in terms of keeping this tight, Michigan has got to make sure that they do not commit any stupid turnovers on their own accord, especially at home. On the road at night against a Power 5 opponent. I bring up the fact that a few weeks ago in the game against Rutgers, they had a key turnover early in the game when the game was still tight that gave Rutgers the ball with good field position. Now, granted, with Rutgers being Rutgers, they shit the bed on that one, but still, I think I have far more respect for Iowa. That even though your defense is stout, I don't want to give them any sense of a pulse, any semblance of hope that they can use to their advantage to, jumpstart, kickstart, whatever you want to term or phrase you want to use, to give them a shot at making this a much more competitive ball game than it should be. Another thing, limit the big plays. Iowa, as we've seen, they've had a bit of a struggle in terms of finding the big play down the field, passing, or even running, but definitely with throwing the ball. And against a stout Michigan secondary as this, even though, like I said, they are very talented. They outclass Iowa's offensive weapons. You can't be too ahead of yourself. You always got to be mindful, hey, the referees, they might not be so lenient on what type of coverage you play in this game, depending on the circumstances and the situation. So it's one thing to keep on your mind of trying to limit the big plays that can rile up the crowd, feed them energy, and in turn feed the team energy in Iowa's case. And third and final point, as it relates kind of a bit to the second point, I mentioned at the tail end of the second point, this atmosphere of being at home at your place, raucous crowd, night game, primetime special, Kirk and Herbie, they're going to be calling the game, so he's going to get all sorts of attention. Top four, playoff caliber team in the whole land, not just the conference, but in the nation at your place. Pretty much Iowa, the way they've been practicing all week, they are going to give Michigan the biggest and best shot that they can possibly give. So Wolverines, they got to be prepared for that. But luckily, like I said, I think Jim Harbaugh, the way he has coached up this team, it makes you feel confident that no matter what happens, they will be prepared. At the very least, they will be prepared mentally to do what they got to do, limit their turnovers, limit their mistakes, and just basically keep this as far from a nail biter as you can possibly get.
Now, the players to watch for our senior quarterback, C.J. Beathard. His quarterback rating for the season, 133.0. At home, 138.5. In the Big Ten, 120.5. And in November, 152.8. That's a whopping number right there.
Oh, man!
He's 130. Yeah, impressive. 136 for 227 yard. 136 out of 227 for 1,584 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He passed for fewer than 200 yards per game in 6 of the 9 Hawkeyes games this season. Senior running back LaShawn Daniels, another player to watch, 129 carries for 642 yards and 6 touchdowns. Junior running back Akram Wadley, 99 rushes for 664 yards and 8 scores.
Oh, man!
The receiving department, Wadley, Riley McCarron, George Kittle, Germanic Smith, and Matt Vandenberg, a combined 114 catches for 1,442 yards and 12 scores. That's a lot of offense. But the turnovers can come into play, and Iowa is taking by far the worst of it.
Yeah, and what it boils down to, can't let those, obviously, you got to win your matchups with players that you're matched up against. I think for Iowa, it's simple. They cannot, under any circumstances, get into any type of third down situation where they're 3rd or 5 or 3rd or 6 and more after that, because Don Brown, he's going to bring the pressure, he's going to bring the blitz, and it could be a long night for the quarterback for Iowa, what's his name, for Bethard. I think that was his name. Yeah, it was going to be a long night for C.J. Bethard if he gets to those type of situations. So there's not so much of he's already at a disadvantage with his line already against Michigan's defensive line. So if he gets to a 3rd and 5, 3rd and long situation, you could expect heat coming. So it'll be in his business to probably find a good enough play where in those situations, get the ball off quick. Maybe one Michigan secondary, they make a mistake either in coverage or an open field tackling. That's their best shot in terms of making good, reliable plays on 3rd downs against this Michigan defense. Conversely, if you're Michigan's defense, there's a good chance that in terms of play calling, you could potentially, if you're watching good enough film and seeing how they operate on the field, there might be a good chance that with their play calling, you could even put them into a bad situation than where they were before. I think there's one instance, there's a video on Twitter that shows the Penn State line almost guaranteeing, knowing what play Iowa was going to run against them, and it stopped them right there in their tracks. Because even after, it seemed Iowa had some type of life where they had a 77-play, 75-yard drive, to cut their deficit at the time to 21-7. By the way, credit this goes to mgoblog.com. After what happened, this is what they detail in terms of drives after that. After that touchdown drive, 4 3-and-outs, 2 4-and-outs, which meant the 3-and-out, and then they went for a 4th down, didn't get it. 2 8-play drives, one lasted 40 yards, the other 23 yards. Both ended on turnovers, one a turnover on down there for quarterback sneak, the other after a Bethard interception, and then, the last drive after that, a 9-play, 81-yard touchdown drive, but that was when the game was well over. So that was supposed to garbage time, basically. So it really didn't matter in the long scheme of things. So if Michigan, if Iowa to be more, not be so predictable with their play calling, it could give them a shot as well. But there are some obstacles that stand in their way that like I said, not just pulling the upset, but make sure this remains as close as possible. Like I mentioned before, that they're at home and at night, it gives them that motivation, extra shot, extra boost to give them a chance. But in terms of trying to make a real nail biter where they could, push Michigan to their limit, I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Which leads to our prediction. I'm going to predict Michigan to win 42-17. I had 35-17 on my script, but I'm going to change it up to 42-17.
Well, the spread at this moment, ESPN has it as Michigan minus 22, over under 51. I doubt they're going to do, in terms of their defense, I doubt they're going to post a shutout. I think it'll be much a little bit more closer to what we saw against Michigan State, but again, won't be as competitive. I say they give up 10 to 14 points, but Michigan with their better superiority, not just with the better offensive weapons, but how they run the football, dominate the line of scrimmage, and just supreme quarterback play at this point. They'll win this one quite comfortably. Let's go 34-14. I don't think they quite, it's maybe Iowa scores it's a late score to get the backdoor cover, but still, Michigan handles this one, handles business, and it's, they mark it number one off the calendar with a couple games left for Ohio State. So I say Michigan 34-14.
I can't wait for that matchup. Saturday at 8 on ABC. I've got to catch that one. I got to finish work on time to catch that game. It's going to be a doozy.
Unfortunately for me, I'll be at work, so you have to catch that for the both of us. But luckily, once I get off my shift, I'll be getting a good news instead of horrible news. That's what I'm banking on.
Hopefully, you can get it on the radio on 10:50 a.m. or 9:50 in the Detroit area.
Yeah, I will. I'll be able to get that. Just in terms of watching the actual highlights, I have to wait till I get home. But we'll see. Like I said, I expect good things. Please don't prove me wrong.
Yep. But now it's time to shift our focus to the lowly Michigan State Spartans.
Touchdown, MSU!
They are now 2-7 and 0-6 in the Big Ten after their 27-23 loss to the Illinois Fighting Illini in Champaign. The Spartans only scored 6 points in the first half on 2 field goals and gave up a touchdown late to end the first half. Went back up 9-7 on Geiger's third field goal. Fell behind again. Took the lead late on an R.J. Shelton 13-yard touchdown pass with 2:52 left. They blew it later by giving up a 16-yard touchdown pass from Jeff George Jr. to Sam Mays with about 35 left, and couldn't convert on 4th down and 2 in the red zone in the end as Damian Terry got pushed back for a 1-yard loss. Total yards, MSU had only 304. MSU 490, Illinois 304. Those are surprising statistics coming up.
Usually with two bad teams play each other, you get those kind of stats.
Yeah, 315 to 140 in passing yards, MSU. 28 to 14 in first downs, MSU. And 41 minutes and 36 seconds to 18-24 in possession time, MSU. But here's a problem for the Spartans. 10 penalties for 89 yards for the Spartans to just 2 for the Illini.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely depressing and disgraceful.
Yeah, too many penalties. The backfield didn't do their job well enough, and the team didn't have any fight left.
Yeah. It's, like I said, we'll get to those one by one. But in terms of, when you look at all these stats, you see, right, Michigan State, MSU, almost a 3-1 advantage in this time of possession, almost doubled Illinois in terms of yards, far better on third downs for once this week than the other team, averaging more yards per pass. Even though they had the one turnover, it was just one turnover, but still, when you look at that, you would think, how in the hell did we lose this? Did you lose this game by 4? Well, it comes to 2 things. For one, 10 penalties, like you mentioned the penalties, 10 penalties for 89 yards. That is disgusting for any level of football. But if you're a Michigan, and also they're not forcing turnovers. They're not getting takeaways. I believe that BTN brought up this week. Michigan State, they have a -5 turnover margin this season, and that's 13th in the Big Ten. That's second to last in the entire conference. So when you have that type of turnover margin, that is one big reason why you're in a bad spot. While you're 2-7 and 0-6 in conference. Like I mentioned, another one, penalties. This is when you think Mark D'Antonio coached teams, you think of defense, and another thing that you think of is discipline. You're seeing none of that. Defensive side, they can't tackle to save their lives. They're always giving up big plays in unneeded moments, and they just don't seem to be doing a good job of applying pressure, of bringing any type of pressure on the quarterback. In terms of penalties, like I said, no discipline, an abhorrent lack of self-awareness, which leads to another factor in my view. Where is their running game? You thought they had something. They finally broke out of it when they had over 200-yard performance against Michigan. That was Michigan's stout defensive line. Here in this one, in terms of yards per as a whole, cumulative amount, MSU does have more in terms of the margin from Illinois. But let's think about how it goes out here. Whereas when Michigan State averages just over 4 yards per rush, Illinois averages 6.8, so that's almost 7. That's almost a 3-yard difference in terms of running game and pounding the ball on the ground. So that accumulates. That speaks a lot in terms of how this game was decided in the running game. While also speaking of the running game, I'm trying to look this load up. Let's look at what some of the backs look like. L.J. Scott, who looked tremendous against Michigan, only has 50 yards in the game. 50 yards with a long run of 15. Gerald Holmes, he doesn't do so much better. Yeah, he's got the touchdown, but he's only got 78 yards. Both those guys had 26 carries, just under 130 yards. That's decent if you're one guy, but with two guys combined, and for a team that's known in the past for running the ball, completely unacceptable. Whereas, my goodness, Kendrick Foster for Illinois, he just ran. He had his way with that defense. 17 carries, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 64-yard burst. It was very. I'm not sure if it was he looked that good or MSU looked that bad. Probably more so of the latter, but still, tremendous performance by Foster. But that was a big difference. That was a big key as to why Illinois hung on for as long as they did before getting that last touchdown late. And also, like you mentioned, Taylor, there's no fight left. This team, you had to think going in, this was going to coming into this season. I mentioned before, they lost a bunch of talent to the NFL, whether it be Conklin, Calhoun, Connor Cook. You knew this team was going to take a step back, but I didn't think it was going to be to this level. And I think seeing how the losses kept piling up week after week, it was draining. It became a toll, not just physically on them, but very, very much so mentally, to the point where they're losing to teams that they have no business losing to. They should have no business losing to Northwestern. They have no business losing to BYU, and they sure as hell have no business losing to Illinois. I don't care if it's on the road or not. You should not be losing to a team like this. So now it comes to a point where you have, Penn State and Ohio State left to go on the schedule. By the way, have you seen how Penn State has looked ever since Michigan took them behind the woodshed? They looked outstanding, including that upset win in Ohio State. But we're now there in the top 10 of the college football playoff rankings. Disagree with that or debate that all you want. They got there. They're at the ranking now. So when you got that, looking at them and knowing what Ohio State brings to the table, that's almost two guaranteed certified losses right there. So going into this game against Rutgers, this is your last chance to get a win in conference play. And now it's at the point where the pressure is on you. Well, if it wasn't before, it definitely damn sure is on now, even if it is at home. Like, could you imagine going winless? And for some of these seniors, I guess, from that stayed the course throughout D'Antonio's program, I'm sure the last thing they could have expected was going winless in their whole entire conference in their senior year. But that may look like to be a gigantic possibility if they somehow lose to, of all teams, Rutgers.
Yeah, and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights and the Michigan State Spartans both kick off Saturday at noon on BTN. This is the last easy chance for MSU to get their first and maybe their only Big Ten win of the season. It's a much easier task than Illinois and Northwestern. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's at home, so it gives you some sort of confidence. But then again, we've been saying that for how long now, this whole entire season, whether it be against Northwestern or whether it be against BYU. And, we knew it wasn't going to be going to happen against Michigan. We thought they had a better shot against Wisconsin, and we saw what happened. So it's not necessarily a guarantee. Home field advantage is no longer a guarantee for the Spartans in this case because, like I said, how they performed, quarterback play, lack of turnovers, and Jekyll and Hyde running game, and bad discipline with their penalties leads to the spot where you are where I don't care, home field advantage almost doesn't matter in this case. But let's look at the numbers here, whether we're regards to between comparing MSU and Rutgers. If you go to Football Outsiders, look for the S&P Plus stat, which is a combined metric analytic measure to determine the true worth in some instances of a team. MSU, they're about ranked 79th currently. Their offense is ranked by them as 80th, and their defense is ranked 77th. Very below average, you could say, below mediocre. But compared to Rutgers, it should be no contest here. Rutgers, they are 113th, as stated by Football Outsiders S&P Plus ranking, 123rd offensively. And in terms of defense, this is actually a little bit of a shocker. They're ranked 64th. So I guess you could say they're a below average defense, a terrible offense, rather a horrible offense, which bounces out to a terrible team. Of course, we know what happens, the shellackings they got against Ohio State and Michigan. You would think this is a good chance for Michigan State to get something going here. Well, if they got to do it, here's what has to happen. They need to reestablish the run game, whether it be sharing the wealth between Scott and Holmes, or running some trickeration with R.J. Shelton in the slot. Whatever you got to do, you need to find something to get you run the ball more, because your passing game is anemic at best. Tyler O'Connell got hurt last week, so that forced Damian Terry into the spot where he was. You don't really know what he's going to give you for the rest of this year, so I guess you maybe have no choice but to use him because, right, Lewerke, his leg is dead for the year, and O'Connor, I think it was a concussion or something that he suffered, so you don't know if he's ready to go. To the best of my knowledge, I don't know if he's ready to go. If you can correct me, Taylor, go ahead. So between that, you almost force the situation, hey, you got to put Damian Terry in there. This is where you need your running backs to show up big for you and your offensive line to show up big for you to take the pressure off your quarterback. So reestablishing the run is key. Limiting the mistakes, and i.e., when I say that, the penalties. They cannot have go another 10 for 89-yard game or something similar to that effect. They will be in great danger of losing this game, no matter who you are. Having that type of performance, showing that type of lack of discipline, is going to put you behind in more ways than one. And see if they can connect with their finishing mentality. Damage you that, when you got the ball late, you need to protect the lead or get a late score, put the game out of reach, win it, or whatever the case may be. They have that type of thing where they're all cohesive, all gelled together, focused one play at a time, one snap at a time, a quick route, a quick slant, a good run up the middle, finding a good pass on third down to extend the drive. They need to have that finishing mentality again, but that was because that was not on showcase against Illinois. Has been seen since, you can almost argue all year because they almost blew it against Notre Dame. So, and Notre Dame, of course, they've looked quite porous themselves. So that's another thing that makes MSU's wins look bad than what they already are, and one of them includes a win against Furman of all teams. So, but I digress. In terms of what they need to do, like I said, finding that finishing mentality of having a good enough chance, whether you're trailing or you have the lead, finishing off the game, finishing off with a big, strong drive. Those are the things. Reconnect with your finishing mentality, reestablish your running game, and find a way to limit your mistakes and gain back some of the discipline that you had.
So it boils down to the prediction of that contest kicking off again at noon on Saturday on BTN. Michigan State, I just don't see them improving in the penalty department. But Rutgers is even worse. I'm going to predict a low-scoring affair, be skeptical on both sides, and say Michigan State wins 17-14 at home.
I'm going to go again with the theory that these are two bad football teams. Usually, you're going to see a lot of points being scored. So even though the spread is MSU minus 14, I think they're begging you to take Rutgers in that situation. Yes, even though I know Rutgers is more horrible, I just don't see this being a comfortable game for either team. So I see this being close. And you know what? To me, MSU, they're at that point where they look lost. They look like they have given up. I'm just going to say it. I think Rutgers is going to win this one. I've been wrong before on a lot of things. I sure as hell was wrong about the election this week, so who's to say I won't be wrong about this pick? But something tells me Rutgers is going to show a little bit more fight, show a little bit more resolve. I think, ever since, even the losses to MSU, to Michigan, Ohio State, and Illinois even, they've shown they've gotten quite, have much more better outings, even though there was losses. But look, they had a 2-point loss to Minnesota, 34-32, and a 6-point loss to Indiana, 33-27. 2 straight weeks where you had the game decided by one possession. So I can see this as a case where Michigan State, Rutgers is, I think, is going to have a little bit more fight in them, even though it's on the road. MSU, they're at the point where they're just waiting for the season to end already. So I will go out there, and knowing what potentially this could turn into for the Spartans, I say Rutgers gets it done. Final score I'm predicting is Rutgers 28, MSU 24.
All right. Just like we both voted for Hillary Clinton, but Trump won, for example. So you had to make a bold move on your prediction. And I believe that may be the right move.
We'll see. But MSU has just looked beyond dreadful this year. I just don't have that faith in them, and especially with Penn State and Ohio State after this. It's to be the bottom of the barrel.
They're no doubters, of course. So it's time for my MAC Roundup, starting with my struggling Central Michigan Chippewas.
Touchdown, Central Michigan!
Cooper Rush threw only one interception in the 37-17 loss to the Miami, Ohio Redhawks in Oxford. Only one interception was fine. But other than that, he cashed in with only 21 of 32 for 242 yards. No touchdown passes. The offensive line, the backfield, and the defense were absolutely dead in the second half, though, after a close 20-17 first half favoring the Redhawks. The Redhawks scored 17 unanswered and racked up a total of 436 yards to CMU's 292, 218 to 50 in rushing Miami, Ohio. CMU just 50 fucking rushing yards the entire game. Just 50. It's pathetic. 2 CMU turnovers, including the one interception by Rush. 21 first downs for the Redhawks, 15 for the Chips. The Hawks had the ball for 33 minutes and 39 seconds to CMU's 26-21. 4 CMU penalties and 3 for Miami, Ohio. Jare Hayes, 18 carries for 60 yards and 2 scores. So that's 60 in rushing, not 50. Well, anyway, still not very much. But Jare Hayes scored the only 2 touchdowns for the Maroon and Gold. Corey Willis, 5 catches for 73 yards. That's not much. For the Redhawks, Gus Ragland, 13 of 21 for 218 yards and 4 touchdown passes. Not very many yardage for quite a few scores. Kenny Young, 7 rushes for 84 yards and a touchdown. Raheem Williams, 3 carries for 61 yards. The Chippewas are falling flat. They're running out of chances to become bowl eligible. They're going to have to become very desperate to get their 6th win of the season to possibly become bowl eligible when they return home to Kelly Short Stadium and welcome in the 7-3 Ohio Bobcats Tuesday at 7 on ESPN2. They have to use all the home field advantage they can have in Mount Pleasant, and they need to start biting, clawing, scratching, and grinding it out. Plus, they need to play more consistently, especially the running game, the defense, and especially the offensive line. They need to pull a lot more of their weight. Plus, they need to know what the fuck they're doing and what's going on. Now, the players to watch for, I'll just go with the offense. And Don Scheido, Brock Gutierrez will have the scouting report on the Bobcats defense, if necessary, on the Chippewa Sports Network. But that being said, Greg Windham, the senior quarterback, 124 out of 220 for 1,366 yards, 9 touchdowns, and only 3 picks compared to Cooper Rush's 12 picks. Windham could be available off the bench, but Quentin Maxwell is expected to start for the Bobcats. He only has thrown 3 interceptions as well, 60 for 100 for 87 for 875 yards and 7 touchdowns. Otherwise, junior running back Dorian Brown, 114 rushes for 656 yards and 3 scores, and senior wide receiver Sebastian Smith, 43 catches for 703 and 4 scores. Compared to Corey Willis's 9 touchdown receptions on 790 yards and 53 catches total. Yards allowed, pretty much even, 380.5 for Ohio, 361.9 for CMU. Total yards gained 4, almost even, very close to even. Ohio 419.7, CMU 407.2. But it's only going to come to a matter of who will execute more. The Bobcats are 5-1 in the MAC. The Chips 2-4. The matchup predictor, unbelievably, according to ESPN.com, says 64.3% say CMU is going to win because of their home field advantage. Maybe they're just not doing enough homework. The other 35.7% say Ohio. I'm going to have to predict the Bobcats winning 34-24.
Before I make my pick, though, there's a couple of numbers I want to go through here, a couple of stats, a couple of rankings, rather. Go actually to preview this. If you go back to the S&P Plus starting on footballoutsiders.com, do comparison to offense, defense, Ohio ranks 93rd offensively, whereas Central ranks 82nd. Not too much disparity, but CMU does fare better in that regard. Whereas conversely, Ohio's defense, the Bobcats' defense is ranked 82nd, and CMU's defense is ranked 89th. Seems neck and neck in that department. I think what it comes down to, I think people are seeing into the home field advantage, and I think Central realizes this could be their last chance to get the 6 wins because of the way Eastern's been playing, the way they've looked this year, and the game is going to be on their territory next week. Will be hard to do. So, but going by that logic, I think in a close one, I see. I'm going to go with Central. I say Central Michigan wins this one. Let's go.
CMU wins, huh?
Yeah, I'm seeing that. I say they go 30-27. CMU wins 30-27.
Wow, okay.
I love it.
All right, so Ed's going with the underdog, and I'm going with the top dog. All right, well, the Western Michigan Broncos stay undefeated with the 37-21 win at Kent State against the Golden Flashes in Kent, Ohio. KSU had a couple leads in the game, but Western came back and held them off in the fourth quarter. WMU's running game was on fire for most of the game. Their receivers did a fine job as well, but most of all, it was WMU's running game. Zach Terrell, 6 of 13 for 83 yards. He mostly handed the ball off because Western Michigan's running game did most of the job. Jarvion Franklin, 31 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown. Fabian Johnson, man, was he on fire. As I watched it, Kent State drops to 3-7 and 2-4 in the MAC. Kent State, in spite of their record, was not an easy team for Western Michigan to deal with, obviously. But Western put them away. Now they're heading home against the 2-7 Buffalo Bulls a week from Saturday. Time to be determined. The Bulls have allowed over 400 total yards this season. I'm going to make an early prediction. Western Michigan wins 56-0. And finally, the Eastern Michigan Eagles winning 48-41 in Muncie, Indiana at Schumann Stadium over the Ball State Cardinals. They become bowl eligible for the first time since 1995. They came back from down 21 points after one quarter of play and made it a very interesting neck-and-neck seesaw back-and-forth battle and won out. It was a total slugfest the rest of the way. 622 total yards for the Eagles, and 542 for the Cardinals. So if you add that up, that's 1,164 total yards added up by both teams.
Oh, man!
5 Cardinal turnovers and 3 for the Eagles. 35-26 EMU in first downs. Third down conversions, EMU 12 for 22, but Ball State just 2 of 13. Individual statistics, Brogan Roback 37 for 71, kind of a little bit over 500, and for 468 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ian Erickson, 25 carries for 109 yards and 2 scores. Dearly Aristilde, 6 catches for 107 yards. For Ball State, Riley Neal, 30 out of 50 for 393 yards. 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Kevon Mabon, 12 receptions for 149 yards and 2 scores. Eastern goes home and takes on Northern Illinois on Wednesday at 8 on ESPNU. Let me go back to ESPN.com and take a look at their record, the Huskies. Just 1 minute here. The Huskies are 3-7. Looking further into that game, Anthony Matty, 105 or 175 yards, 105 on 175 completion attempts, 1,213 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Joel Boagnon, 149 carries for 728 yards, 6 touchdowns. And Kenny Galladay, 79 receptions for 1,029 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. The secondary defense for EMU had better watch out for Galladay. Team stats looking like a doozy, but The matchup predictor, 59.4% say NIU. No spread, no over-under yet, but I'm going to take Northern Illinois. Actually, I'm going to take Eastern Michigan to win by a close one. Probably high scoring, but 45-38 Eastern.
I'm going to say Northern Illinois, actually. Yeah, even though I know they only have 3 wins, but their offense in the last 5 games at least, even if some of those have been losses, have looked very impressive. They've gotten at least 30 or more points. Correction, at least 28 or more points. So, in the last 5 games that they've played, they've scored at least 28 points or more. I'm looking at Northern Illinois. So, I think even though they're on the road and you could say at night against a conference opponent, I think because of the fact that Northern Illinois seems to have a better running game, that could be the difference. I see this one being more on the low-scoring edge, believe it or not, or lower-scoring side of things. I say Northern Illinois 27, Eastern Michigan 21.
All right. So that does it for the MAC Roundup, and that covers all of college football in the Min on the Michigan Sports Truth, episode 239. Now we tune to the pros and focus on the Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
How about their finish? 22-16 winning in overtime at US Bank Stadium over the Minnesota Vikings.
I love it!
The Lions thought they were going to lose when they allowed a Rhett Ellenson touchdown with 23 seconds left from 1 yard out when he crossed the plane before Detroit's secondary defense batted it out a split second before that out of his hands. But then the Lions, with no timeouts left, somehow got the pigskin all the way with their passing game to the Vikings' 40-yard line, setting up the game-tying 58-yard field goal as time expired, forcing overtime by Matt Prater.
Oh, man!
Detroit would win the coin toss and get the ball first, and they would win it on Matthew Stafford's 28-yard touchdown pass to Golden Tate. Matt Prater, on his 58-yard field goal, in result, would win the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week award for his 58-yard equalizer. Total yards, 351 to 311 for Minnesota. In favor of Minnesota. 97 to 78 Detroit in rushing, but Minnesota was favored in passing yards, 273 to 214. Penalties. The Lions, 6 for 57 yards. The Vikings, 8 for 54. No turnovers for Minnesota. 1 for Detroit, the Stafford interception, along with his 23 for 36 performance for 219 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Tate with his game-winning touchdown, 11 catches for 79 yards. Eric Ebron, 7 receptions for 92. Theo Riddick, 14 carries for 70 yards. A returning Dwayne Washington, 10 for 26, only getting warmed up. For the Vikings, Sam Bradford, 31 of 40 for 273 yards and a TD. Ronnie Hillman, 7 carries for just 30. Stephon Diggs, 13 catches for 80. Adam Thielen, 4 for 68. Cordarrelle Patterson, 6 for 45. And Kyle Rudolph, a wide-open touchdown reception with 4:02 left in the third quarter. All of those statistics, receiving-wise, for Minnesota, show more examples why or how, whichever way you slice it, the Lions' secondary defense continues to be awful. But
very bad.
Yeah, that still needs to be cleaned up. A win's a win, but there's still a lot more room for improvement, especially in the secondary defense.
Definitely so. You saw that in a number of drives, including the last one where Minnesota had scored the touchdown to go ahead where the secondary just kept giving up big play after big play, whether it be giving too much cushion up on the line of scrimmage, giving up third down conversion after third down conversion, just not finding a good enough way to finding that crucial turnover late when they needed it. So it took a number of things to go the Lions' way to get them in the spot. It took a little bit of luck, I would say, where there was the long kick by Prater, or in some instances, bad luck for Minnesota because Blair Walsh had a horrible game on his end. He missed the extra point that would have made it 10-10, and then he missed a field goal later on.
Well, hold on. Well, I don't mean any interruption, but Matt Prater is more talented than Lucky as a field goal kicker. He's kicked in field goals for longer than 50 yards many times in his career. He even drilled a 65-yard field goal with the Denver Broncos in the past at one time a few years ago.
Granted, I get that. And now, granted, that one was in Denver, and that high altitude.
Not luck.
But again, but like I said, luck for the Lions' perspective, bad luck for Minnesota. I'm not bringing Prater into this at all. I'm talking about Blair Walsh for Minnesota. He's the kicker for Minnesota that missed the extra point. He's the kicker for Minnesota that missed the field goal. He left 4 points off the board. I'm talking about Blair Walsh, leaving 4 points off the board for his team where it could have been enough to be the difference where they didn't even have to get to overtime. So that's what I was talking about in that instance.
Yeah, Blair Walsh doinked that one field goal attempt. Yeah, the Lions got lucky.
Yeah. And also in terms of a little bit of luck too, Jim, you got to give some credit to Jim Caldwell here. He was able to, while during Minnesota, it was as pointed out by Peter King, detailed on PriorDetroit.com, but pointed out by Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback. You can read that on Sports Illustrated. Plug. Jim Caldwell, while during Minnesota's final offensive drive, he argued for and eventually was granted 2 more extra seconds after calling his final timeout. And it turned out to be the right call because the Lions needed all of those 2 seconds to set up the Prater field goal. In terms of a new play, you can kind of credit Jim Bob Cooter on this, but also got to credit Matthew Stafford as well. We'll get to Stafford a little bit more, but seeing how they performed on that final drive in regulation, getting down the field, in 2 plays in 20 seconds or so. Great eyes by Stafford to look downfield. Great awareness by his receivers to make the necessary catch. Tremendous hustle by the offensive unit as a whole, not only getting back to the line of scrimmage, but also not lining up in an illegal formation, which would have been a penalty and I think caused a runoff on the clock, thus game over. You're out of field goal range and you don't have time to set up one more play. So, a lot of things had to happen on that one, which, again, I attribute to needing a little bit of luck to win that game. You got it. But also the fact that Matthew Stafford, once again, saves the day. Into the booth he goes. Out he comes to save the Lions yet again. In all their wins, Matthew Stafford has played a big hand, in a burn or not. You can make an argument, like you said, with the field goal they needed to beat Philadelphia. That was more set up by their defense, fine. But their other wins, as the quarterback, it's his job to lead his team down the field and put them in the right, best enough spots where they either score, take the lead, or win. He has done that and then some. Of course, making the touchdown throw at the Tate, which, by the way, credit to Tate, not only keeping balance, staying in bounds, using his tiptoes, but how about the creative celebration in terms of diving for the end zone like he was in a game of Madden 17, where it could have been a little bit risky, but he held onto the ball, got it across the plane, broke it, whatever. That was the game-winning score. But, leading up to that, what even got them in that spot, the reason why they were even in overtime to begin with, not just the great kick by Prater, but their quarterback, Matthew Stafford, leading them down the field where they needed it the most. And again, I think it puts him right back into the topic of MVP discussion. I know he had a less than stellar week the week before against Houston, but that was mainly because of the fact that, he just didn't get the ball enough times to probably show something where, got more chances, got a little bit of luck, like I mentioned, but once he got the ball where he knew what he had to do, he got it done. So, again, you can make a very a very good argument for Matthew Stafford as MVP or an MVP candidate if somehow the Lions do get into the playoffs here. And it brings us to another key of where they are at this point. They're now 5-4. They just got a win over the current division-leading Vikings, and to make things help them out even more, Green Bay lost this past Sunday to the Indianapolis Colts. So
at home,
Green Bay sits at So that helps out Green Bay. So now the Lions, they have sole possession of second place in the NFC North, and they're only a half game behind the Vikings, the team they just beat. And again, the team they're going to host again is a couple weeks in Thanksgiving. And you got. I think it's safe to say Minnesota, they have not looked right at all the past 3 weeks. Losing to Chicago, losing to Philly, and now losing to Detroit. It's definitely doing something to their psyche where it could, even though a stout of a team they are defensively, offensively, they're not clicking. Obviously, the injury to Adrian Peterson hurts, and it's a point where the North Turner had to resign last week in terms of how this offense was going. Their offensive coordinator, North Turner, had to resign. So they're a little bit of a whirlwind of a free fall right now. So this is the right opportunity for the Lions to probably make some noise, do what they need to do. And if they find themselves either having a share of or in the lead of the division as we head to December, I think they would be in a prime spot to make playoffs, in my view. But it's still way too early to determine because you don't know how they're going to finish out the rest of their schedule. But, you have essentially a gimme after you come back because you have a bye this week. So you have a chance to rest up, and you basically have a layup coming up for you against, of all teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then you're home again against Minnesota for Thanksgiving. And then your December schedule, got a couple of tough games. You got a tall order against the Cowboys night after Christmas on Monday Night Football. But to me, the Bears are still a bad team. You should have beaten them the first time. You have to beat them second time at home. Green Bay has looked less than stellar. You got them last game of the year at your place, by the way. You got the Saints, yes, even though it's in the Superdome, but these aren't a vintage. This is not a vintage Saints team. And correct me if I'm wrong, the Lions, the last time they faced New Orleans in the Superdome, they actually got the win on Monday Night Football. I think it was last season. So the Lions should have that confidence there. And the Giants, Eli Manning has not looked that good this year at all. It seems like every week there's a little bit of drama involving Odell Beckham Jr. I think on the right week, the Lions could catch the Giants. So between the rest of that schedule here, the Lions, I think, find themselves in a good enough spot where if things go their right way, they could find themselves potentially looking at a playoff spot. I'm not sure it would be a wild card spot or if the way this division is set up, potentially winning the NFC North, but we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, back to the overtime drive. Stafford's offense, he and his offense kept converting on third down, and they even got a pass interference penalty, and then they faced a third and 8 from the 28, and they converted again, and this time Golden Tate caught the ball on the 15-yard line. He was just a couple or three tippy toes away from the out-of-bounds sideline, but he kept both feet in bounds the whole time, and he broke 2 tackles magnificently, and he dove incredibly for the end zone and got the touchdown. Perfect, just a well-done drive, and the only drive in the overtime frame by the Lions.
Yeah, and by the way, what's overlooked in that, the crucial third down conversion that was given up, you could say that Detroit made, thanks in part to, of all people, Eric Ebron making a crucial catch. So that shows the confidence that Stafford has in his tight end, and again, that type of confidence will grow and latch on to each player, and as a whole will make the team feel much more confident in themselves in late tight situations going forward. So that helped out matters as well. Between that and, again, just Stafford spreading the ball around, Obviously, there's things they need to get better on. Their defense, no question. Finding a way, especially their secondary. You hope Darius Slay comes back soon from his hamstring issue. Now, with the bye week, there's a good chance he might play against Jacksonville, so that'll be good to have him back for the home stretch. You never know with the ongoing adventures of DeAndre Levy, if and when he'll ever play for this season, who knows? But if you manage to get him back, you get Slay back, your defense looks much better for the home stretch. So you know what your offense can bring. I think if your defense, if you're thinking defense, you think you need to get a couple guys back from injury, and you'll be in a good enough spot to where this division currently stands. You have a good chance of making some good noise. That's what close out this season.
Yeah, and they're going to use the bye week to let their players heal. They need DeAndre Levy back. They need Darius Slay back. They're not going to get Amir Abdullah back for sure. That's one thing we already know. But DeAndre Levy and
you have Theo see how well he's performed since, and Eric Ebron is looking quite stout as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that said, the Lions, as I just mentioned, have their bye week before returning home to Ford Field and playing the Jacksonville Jaguars Sunday at 1. I believe that's on CBS, but we'll preview that next week. So that's enough for football. Now to tune to other sports, including hockey most of all. By the way, Ken Cal has lost his voice, so prayers and condolences passed along to him. So Bob Kaiser had to fill in tonight for Ken Cal in the 3-1 win over the Vancouver Canucks earlier tonight, or earlier last night. But after losing to the Flyers in their first of two trips to Philadelphia in overtime 4-3, they lost 5-3 at home to the Winnipeg Jets, 2-1 at home to the Edmonton Oilers on Sunday, Jets on Friday, and then they come back to Philadelphia and they win in a shootout thanks to Andreas Athanasiou, the game-tying goal and the game-winning shootout goal in the third round. First win in Philadelphia since January 25th of 1997.
I love it.
Yeah, that was a regular season, not counting, of course, what they did in the playoffs in the Stanley Cup final. So, yeah,
right.
Literally their first win in almost 20 years in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and then they come back home against the Vancouver Canucks, so-so Vancouver Canucks. Canucks going into that game snapping a 6-game losing streak with a win. They lose again to the Red Wings 3-1 at Joe Louis Arena. Jimmy Howard got his started the last three. He only gave up 2 goals to the Oilers and took the loss. Gave up 2 to the Philadelphia Flyers and didn't give up a shootout goal, not one. He won 3-2, and then he allowed just 1 goal to the Vancouver Canucks. Daniel Sedin from Henrik Sedin. But in those last 2 losses to the Jets and Oilers, Justin Applicator scored a goal in each of them. And then Tomas Tatar finally got on the board in Philadelphia before Athanasiou continued to be the hero again. And then Dylan Larkin and Brendan Smith. And then Steve Ott tipped in a goal. That was his first as a Red Wing, finally.
Took him long enough.
Yeah. 611 days since Ott previously scored a goal. According to Prashant Iyer of Weighing In Motown on Twitter at Iyer_Prashant, Prashanth. He was on the Schuling Report yesterday on the Team 92.1 FM, WQTX in St. John's and Lansing. From downtown Lansing, actually, 105 West Allegan Road. But the Red Wings, still without Thomas Vanek, have only scored two or three goals per game the last 5 games plus. Remember, they were on a 5-game winless streak. They snapped it with that shootout win in Philadelphia. But 2 or 3 goals still isn't too much. Thomas Vanek still is being missed with his lower body injury, being put on long-term injured reserve. Tyler Bertuzzi, for that, was called up by Ken Holland, the general manager, instead of Anthony Mantha. And we, of course, know why. Ken Holland just despises Anthony Mantha for some reason. There's been a problem between Holland and Blashill, the Holland and Blashill duo, and Anthony Mantha himself. He continues to tear it up in Grand Rapids. He keeps scoring the goals. He even got a shootout goal the night before on Wednesday in the 5-4 shootout win at Van Allen Arena over the Cleveland Monsters, in which Evgeny Svechnikov, the latest first-round draft pick this year for the Red Wings, got the game-winning shootout goal in the 4th round, the bottom of the 4th round of the shootout. But Anthony Mantha, again, continues to tear it up for Grand Rapids when he should have been called up like 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago for that matter.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's definitely, it's almost beating a dead horse, but, it's worth mentioning he needs to be up there like yesterday. But, first and foremost, back to the Philly win. I don't know what was a bigger, more upset on Tuesday, Trump over Hillary or the Red Wings finally winning a game in Philadelphia. Andre, it's happening to see you once again, making Holland look like an absolute idiot, more of an idiot than he already is. Very unfortunate that he suffered that injury, though. So between that and Vanek, of course, already down, you think the Red Wings would be going one step.
I was going to mention Athanasiou's lower body injury. It was a left leg injury earlier last night against the Vancouver Canucks. Hopefully, he's not out for as long as Thomas Vanek is. That's the point.
Yeah, you would hope to have at least one, if not both guys back in the near future, but at least one having feedback. You would hope it's Athanasiou, the value that he brings to the team as well. Another thing I have to mention, though, it's out of its coincidence, pattern, or whatever. Jimmy Howard is getting more and more starts, as you can see. He got his 3rd straight after Mrazek had just done 3 straight. And in terms of both guys having 1 or 2 games before switching to the other. Now with Howard doing 3 in a row, do they go with? It'll be interesting to see what they do on Saturday if Mrazek gets the starting goal. But seeing how Howard has performed compared to what Mrazek has been this year, I guess you could say they're riding the hot hand. But you would think long term Mrazek should be better. What if he doesn't? What if Howard maintains this level of consistency and thus in turn earns more and more trust? Now you could say, hey, maybe they're using that as a chance to possibly look at possible offers near the trade deadline. But if it is, so be it. But at least we're getting good goaltending play. That's one big reason why we've won. Like I said, have had more opportunities to win the games that we should have, as opposed to ones where we've lost. But even still, we're 2 games over 5. We do have 8 wins compared to 6 losses. We got an extra point by getting into overtime. So I think you can attribute a large part of this, what we've seen, due to goaltending. Now, granted, the offense needs to do better because when you lose 5 in a row, is a lot of things. Obviously, your defense is still bad, but your offense needs to do better. And that 5-game losing streak, they only scored 3 goals. That was the highest they've scored, but they only scored that twice. It's either no goals, 1 goal, or 2 goals in the other losses. That just can't do it. So at least they're doing something. Again, they still need to get a little bit better, but at least with their goaltending helping them out even more so, this could be a good way to turn things around. But I think, like I said, pay attention, pay close attention to the whole goaltending situation. if Jimmy Howard continues to get more chances in net, comparing to how both goalies have looked at the start of the season.
I want to take a look at the penalty killing unit as well. The penalty killing unit, including Steve Ott, Luke Glendening, and Riley Shahan of all people, they've actually done a lot better on the penalty kill than on even strength and on the power play combined. Their penalty killing unit has done a tremendous job. They've been almost perfect thus far this season.
Yeah, especially in the last 3 games or so. Now, granted, one of those was a loss, but counting tonight's game against Vancouver, they're now they've killed 5 out of the last 7 penalties, which is very impressive considering what they are. And in terms of overall how their penalty kill looks, as I'm waiting for the screen to load up here,
that's pretty damn good, by the way.
The penalty kill is not too deep, in terms of ranking overall, not that great. They're only 21st, but still, it's at a 79% clip. It's still pretty decent. They're very impressive, at least you could say. And what we've shown in the past few games, it's getting a little bit better and better. So that'll be another good deterrent that could help them improve throughout the course of the season. Great goaltending, whoever the starter is, and great penalty killing.
Yeah, I'd imagine the last 3 games they've done better than that, but those are accurate numbers. Another thing I'd like to point out is offensively, the Red Wings need to stop going offsides so much. The last week, they've entered the offensive zone offsides quite a few times per game. They need to cut down on it. They need to be more aware of who has the puck and who doesn't. Who has the puck needs to go first before the attacker who doesn't. And that's just the rules of the game. I don't know if the Red Wings are forgetting the memo of the offside call or just being way too anxious. They somehow need to get it right again. They need to be more patient. But this is another reason that's another reason why their offense has been struggling the last 6 or 7 games since Thomas Vanek has been out. But you can't just blame it on Vanek's injury. They need to be more consistent on when they're on the attack through the neutral zone. They need to come in onside more than offsides. I've watched it. So there's that. So their upcoming schedule is, of course, as we mentioned, at Montreal, later tomorrow night at 7 on Saturday. Then they're home against the Tampa Bay Lightning Tuesday at 7:30. Time for some revenge there. Then they go to Verizon Center and play the Washington Capitals Friday at 7:30. So that should be a good one. The Capitals are a really tough team, especially with Alexander Ovechkin, Braden Holtby.
Yeah, one of the best players in the world in Ovechkin. I think you had the Vezina winner last year in Holtby. I think they had the best record, at least in the East, if not in the whole league, did Washington last year. So, yeah, definite. If you want to have at least an impressive showing against, even if it doesn't result in a win.
Yep. So with the Red Wings out of the way, it's time to transition to the Pistons.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
They continued their dominance at home with a 103-86 win over the Denver Nuggets at the Palace, but that was in between the 109-101 loss in the East Coast at the Brooklyn Nets at Barclays Center. They still find every way to lose on the road. They get absolutely tarnished out west at Staples Center by the Los Angeles Clippers, 114-82. And then they blow a lead in the fourth quarter after they take the lead early to begin the fourth quarter. They blow a lead with 5:02 left, and they lose 107-100 to the Phoenix Suns. Just just talk about pulling the self-destruct trigger. I understand they have Reggie Jackson still on the injured reserve until at some point in December, but even if they had them back, they still can't play defense and on the road compared to how well they can play defense at home. It's still an issue on the road. That's not excusable.
Yeah, and I don't know what's the reason. I don't know if the mentality of it is, again, whether it's the lack of getting to the paint or sharing the ball or having better offensive possessions, moving the ball around instead of going for quick shots, or maybe shots just aren't going down. Whatever it is, it needs to change up something, because they can't be, a Jekyll and Hyde team where you're good at home, but you stink on the road. That's just not going to work out for you, especially when you're trying to be a team that improving better from what you saw last year when they got to the first round of the playoffs. This is a team some are expecting to possibly reach 50 wins this year. Well, in order to do that, you got to win some games on the road at least. So even if you somehow go 41-0 at home, which obviously we don't expect them to do so, you still got to win games on the road. That's what great teams, what playoff caliber teams, they do. They get stuff down on the road. So again, I could say they are still in process here. Still the team that's learning. That's quite evident for a young team, even though they're talented and developing. Developing is the key word here. So whatever it means, finding ways to look more impressive in the paint, have better rebounding, have much better rebounding, finishing more at the rim. And obviously one thing that killed them, once again, their 3-point defense period, but also especially from the perimeter. One thing that plagued them last year, and it definitely played.
That was my point all along.
Yeah, definitely plagued them against Phoenix as well.
Left them wide open constantly. I don't know. I just don't know why the Pistons let that continue to be an issue for themselves.
Like I said, it's got to be something mental in terms of playing on the road as opposed to home, but they got to get over that hurdle themselves. That comes with the territory of being in the NBA. You got to find a way to
overcome,
not just at one spot, but all throughout. That's what good teams do.
Yeah, definitely. But we got to look on the positive side here. Obviously, their star center, Andre Drummond, signed to a 5-year, $30 million contract extension. In his last 3 games, he has shot 14 of 22 from the free throw line.
Oh, man! I love
That's impressive.
That is impressive.
You
yeah.
Equate that out by the quick math, that's over 60%. Probably about 63 or 64 if you want to be more accurate than he's been from the line. But still, compared to what he was beforehand, he was still above 40. Topped off by a dreadful 1 for 6 outing against the Knicks. Then, of course, no free throw attempts at all against the Nets. Since then, the 3 games that you mentioned, 7 for 11 against Denver, 3 for 5 against the Clippers, and last night, 4 for 6 against the Suns. So again, that equals out to the 14 for 22. Quite impressive. I don't know what's up. Maybe we can't be so bullish on the whole virtual reality thing after all. Maybe it is providing some help here, because I can't explain how he looks so piss poor all year, and in the games leading up to now, where all of a sudden now he's going on a good stretch. What you say, 1 is a coincidence, 2 is a trend, 3 is a pattern. So far, we're looking at a good pattern here. You hope he keeps that up. If he tries his best to average, like I said, try to make 3 out of 5. I think that should be his goal, his ceiling per game. Make 3 out of 5 free throws. If you do that, you'll be well on your way to having a much better percentage-wise season shooting for the line that he did last year. So, like I said, there's many layers to Andre Drummond where he has all the potential in the world, but there's some hurdles that he needs to get over. One of them, of course, is his free throw shooting. So far, he's looking so good. He's looking terrific. And that department, we can't be too celebratory yet. It's only a 3-game stretch. We need to see, can he keep this level of consistency up throughout, a week, 2 weeks, a month, the rest of the first half, and eventually the whole season. You got to see where he goes in that department. But still, so far, so good.
Yeah, it's all about working your way up. And as far as I'm concerned, if he keeps that up, then there's no way in hell that he should be even shooting free throws underhanded after all, like Justin Spiro recommended him to last season. Think about that.
Listen, you take it however way it comes. I don't care if it's underhanded, overhanded, or if he throws it like John Stockton against the backboard. As long as it goes in, I'm fine with it.
Yep. But he is improving without the underhanded advice. Yeah, and we see that the last 3 games, 14 of 22. Let's hope he keeps that up. That's it. Got to be aware of it. So their upcoming schedule, they have 2 games left on the West Coast, well, somewhere around there, the Midwest. On Friday night, that's later tonight, at 8:30, they're at the AT&T Center against the San Antonio Spurs. That's a tough game. Then they go to Denver Nuggets. They go to Pepsi Center and play the Denver Nuggets again Saturday at 9. Back-to-back games. Then they return to the Palace and home against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's another formidable task. And then they go to Madison Square Garden on the East Coast, somewhere close to there, and play the New York Knicks Wednesday at 7:30. So, looking forward to those games.
At this point, you hope they find a way to salvage this road trip. If you can get a win, most likely it will be looking to be against Denver than you would be against San Antonio. But if you can get a win out of this, it'll be a much welcome relief. Then after that, you see another tough test. After that, 2 of your next shoot. It's not a good schedule after you come home. You're home for Oklahoma City, which, seeing how Russell Westbrook has performed this year, look out. That could be pretty ugly. Then you're at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks. They always seem to find a way to lose on the road against the Knicks more often than not. Then you're on the road against the defending champion Cleveland Cavaliers, who looked pretty damn good themselves at the start of this year. Then after that, 2 more. You finally saw the big home game stretch. But look who you're facing: Boston, Houston, Miami, the Clippers again. Before going back on the road on the 26th against
formidable opponents. A few more formidable opponents after Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. If they want to, like I said, if they want to start earning more respect, try to trend more upward after last year, they got to find a way to win some of these games. That's the expectation that should come after the season that you had last year, and you're looking to improve on that this year. You got to find a way to win some of these games, period.
Yep. Going to stick with basketball a little bit more. The Michigan State Spartans men's basketball team tips off Friday at 7.
Valentine for the win!
On ESPN in the Armed Forces Classic at Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. Going in 12th ranked against the 10th ranked Arizona Wildcats. Again, Friday at 7 on ESPN. That's going to be a good game. Quick prediction, if you may.
MSU, they'll do fine. They always seem to do well most of the times in both high-profile non-conference games. So I see them getting a good win to jumpstart their season. Why not? I could be wrong, but let's see.
All right. For your Michigan Wolverines men's basketball team.
For 3, yes, sir!
They tip off Friday at 9 at Chrysler Arena against Howard. Of course, Michigan's going to win. No need for keys to the game there.
Nope, it's just seeing how can But really, at this point, for some of these early games, which look like glorified scrimmages, it comes to how can some of their key players, like Derek Walton and Zach Irvin, how can they look? Because I think this will be their last years here. Now, how can they do in terms of leaving a mark while also setting the tone for the next players after them continuing that torch, so to speak. So I want to see how they look from that leadership department, and in terms of just being all around distributors and setting the team up in both scoring and passing.
And then for my Central Michigan Chippewas men's basketball team, they tip off Friday at 7 again at McGurk Arena against Indiana Kokomo, Kokomo. Other Michigan college basketball teams in action Friday at 7. Eastern Michigan Eagles at Pittsburgh Panthers, the Bowling Green Falcons at the Oakland Grizzlies, and the Marygrove College at the Western Michigan Broncos. Now we're going to hit the diamond here and talk some Tigers off-season news here.
That one is long gone.
It is clearly more evident the Tigers are putting up a complete fire sale. According to John Heyman of CBS Sports, right fielder J.D. Martinez is most likely to be traded, as we and others predicted. Now we're hearing Justin Verlander is likely to be traded, and then earlier yesterday, the Houston Astros called in on a trade request involving Miguel Cabrera. That was actually 2 days ago now. Or Toronto Blue Jays left fielder Edwin Encarnacion. Ian Kinsler, the second baseman, is coming up in trade talks. By the way, he won the AL Gold Glove winner among second basemen. But General Manager Al Avila of the Tigers says, quote, "Our goal is to shed payroll," and that's a no-brainer because he wants the Tigers to be, quote, leaner and younger, but not according to Jeff Moss in his latest article. Chris Ilitch hired speechwriter to pen Mike Yelich's eulogy, which we'll get to momentarily, but most fans are agreeing that the Tigers should sell Miguel Cabrera and Justin Verlander, for example, and J.D. Martinez, and even Ian Kinsler.
I don't know. I just don't see. Like I said, this is more so of my attack on Chris Ilitch, so to speak. Where even though say what you want about Brad Ausmus as a manager, you still had a good chance to possibly contend for a playoff spot next year. Because let's face it, you got caught with the injury bug. It happens. It happens in most instances where it's just your unlucky year. But you still had a good enough of talent between Maben and Justin Upton and whatnot. And also your pitchers, Zimmerman, Boyd, Norris, obviously Fulmer, Verlander. There's no reason to think you could have found a good chance, not contend for a World Series, but at least contend for a possible playoff spot for next year. So to say, we've got to get younger and leaner, no, you don't. You really fucking don't. And it's not needed to do so right now. If you want to say 2 years from now, sure. But right now, when I think, like I said, you have a good chance as any, where if you had just won your games against the Cleveland Indians, you would have been in the playoffs. Who knows what would have happened the way your pitching was looked. Between that and the injury bug, and like I said, for better or worse, Brad Ausmus is your manager. You got to deal with it. The Tigers could have done something in 2017. Now with the Maben trade,
only for next year, Brad Ausmus. Yeah, hopefully.
Sure. But now that you're trying to essentially pull the plug early and just gut this team, it's definitely looking much more worse than what it already could have, should be. I don't know if it's going to be beneficial long term or not, but short term, it's definitely going to suck major ass.
Yeah, I still don't see. As long as Brad Ausmus is manager, no matter how much talent the Tigers have, no matter how desperate they get, I just don't see them reaching the playoffs next year. I see them failing again, no matter how close they come. And Alavila may start to get tired of all this. He may have to make a tough decision afterwards if that's the case.
Choice, like I said, I think Alavila just has no other choice because he's taking orders from command, from Chris Ilitch. Use your little scandal terminology. This is B613. Chris Ilitch is command. He's the head guy. So he's taking, Alavila's taking the high orders. He's just spewing it out, spitting it to say to the media and the fans. Some of the fans are gullible enough to believe it. But between, like I said, if you find a way to trade some of these guys, it's an absolute fire sale and it's going to further exasperate them definitely for sure not making the playoffs next year. If they trade, they already got rid of Maven. Who's to say they won't get rid of JD or Kinsler or, God forbid, JV or Miggy before the season starts? If any one of those scenarios or more of those multiple scenarios happen, yeah, absolutely.
Or before Christmas, by the way.
Most likely the team won't make the playoffs. So that, again, exasperates it even further.
Yeah, as well as Brad Ausmus's in-game decisions. And of course, that's going to get Ausmus nowhere. But Chris Ilitch's priority number one. We got to come up with a movement on that to somehow get rid of Chris Ilitch.
Like I said, that will only happen if he sells the team. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, Chris Ilitch should sell the Tigers. And like I touched on a month ago, Jeff Moss was speaking on the DSR podcast a month ago with Justin Spiro that there could be a possibility that Dan Gilbert could buy the Tigers. And maybe the Lions too. But most importantly, the Tigers. So we got to keep our fingers crossed. So we're going to stick with that. With that source, with those sources that Jeff Moss and Justin Spiro got on the DSR podcast from several other sources, and we got to hope for the best.
See where it goes.
Yeah. One short note. Otherwise, Michael Fulmer wins the Outstanding Rookie Award at Players' Choice Awards. Congrats to him. Now to Jeff Moss's DSR article. Chris Ilitch, the aforementioned, speak of the devil, hires a speechwriter to pen Mike Ilitch's eulogy. As we read through it here, it mentions the Tigers' offseason, the trading of Cameron Maven, net leaving the Tigers with internal options, Jacoby Jones, Tyler Collins.
He freaking sucks.
And Anthony Gose.
He freaking sucks.
And then, and what Jeff Moss was saying, there's nobody that can replace Cameron Maven. The Tigers got a prospect relief pitching, a relief right-handed pitcher, Victor Alcantara. Jeff Moss named Alcantara a poor man's Al Albuquerque. And then Chris Ilitch already has a team at Fox headquarters working on funeral arrangements. Mike Ilitch's condition is extremely grave, so possibilities of Mike Ilitch dying are even much greater. And that's very sad news, very terrifying news. If you're against Chris Ilitch, Mike Ilitch. Mike Ilitch would have had the better decisions to get rid of Brad Ausmus than Chris Ilitch ever had. And then Ronald Ilitch the news on him getting arrested on cocaine charges and getting caught with a hooker. And he was, in 2004, arraigned and charged with 2 counts of domestic violence. Then Jeff goes on about Denise Ilitch. Who had something to do with Hall of Famer Adam Oates, who was playing with the Red Wings. He was traded to the St. Louis Blues for with Paul McLean for old veterans Bernie Federko and Tom McKegney. And Jeff Moss labeled it arguably and clearly the worst trade in Detroit sports history, but it wasn't Denise's only foray in her dad's sports operations. She and her lackey Jim Stapleton, who at the time was senior vice president of business affairs, would attempt to micromanage the media because they didn't like the critical coverage of the team. For example, she didn't like Greg Henson, who was on AM 1270 WXYT, criticizing the Tigers or the Red Wings, and the Red Wings, better wording. So she forced the station to transfer Greg Henson to its sister station 97.1. And then Greg Henson was run out of Detroit to Pittsburgh, and he found a job there a few years ago. But now that Greg Henson is back on the Detroit airwaves on 1130 WDFN and in Grand Rapids now with Drew McCarthy and Jim Costa on the Greg, Big, Drew, and Jim show now on ESPN 961 WMAX in Grand Rapids and Holland. And then there's even more. The Carol Ilitch and David Trepnick ended in a he said, she said divorce firestorm that included accusations of anti-Semitism and domestic violence, overbearing Ilitch family influence, and sour business deals. And then he gets back to Chris Ilitch, who Jeff Moss labeled an insecure, thin-skinned man who can't take a piss without conferring with his circle of yes-men, who is despised by a majority of his siblings and who has very few friends. Supposedly only two of the sisters even speak to Chris, and that's because of their role with the family business. And maybe when Chris Ilitch oversees the trade of Jeff Moss's favorite Tiger, J.D. Martinez, Jeff will unload the dossier, which includes the multiple tips that Moss has received over the years from folks at family weddings telling him about Mike Sr. getting ossified drunk in front of strangers, that's Mike Ilitch, and ugly arguments between him and Marion. So a lot of drama going on between the entire Ilitch family, to sum it all up, along with Detroit sports business.
In the middle, yeah, it's basically the child in this equation is the Detroit sports community, and that they're basically held in hostage by this dysfunctional family that makes, I don't know, the McMahons seem more sane. That's saying something.
Yeah, this is all an example of why we need to stay on Jeff Moss's bandwagon here. For everyone out there, you can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Moss DSR. He is the founder, owner, and editor-in-chief of the Detroit Sports Rag. Please follow him and like his Facebook page, DetroitSportsRag.com, and visit his website and join his Facebook group, Detroit Sports Rag, all in one word. So at the end, he topped it up, put the cherry on top of the sundae with a Photoshop of Tyler Collins flipping the fans the bird and using it as a message from Chris Ilitch.
And as an ultimate metaphor to how he plans on not just fucking this team over, but fucking the fans over.
Yeah. So, Jeff Moss, his last two sentences, just sell the team, asshole, and write your own father's freaking eulogy, you goddamn robot. Exclamation point, period. So, our movement from now on is hashtag sell the Tigers to Dan Gilbert.
Or to someone. Anyone.
Especially
actually.
Dan Gilbert. Yeah. Dan Gilbert would be the best one. So my hashtag, sell the Tigers to Dan Gilbert.
I just sell the Tigers, period. Put us out of our misery.
Yeah. So that would clear up everything else, including this Ausmus situation, for example, like I touched on several times over the last 2 months.
By the way, before we get into 10 questions, I didn't get the chance to get in my pick for Western Michigan's game. They look to be, I was going to mention they look to be on track to playing in a New Year's Six bowl game. They'll continue that and they'll get another easy win.
Of course. Yeah, that was a no-doubter. That's why we had to move on very quickly. This is a Cram-In edition here. We're just about up to 2 hours now on this program, on this episode. So why don't we get to 10 questions right away?
But Rip Taylor, we got plenty. We're in crunch time here.
Yep.
It's time for the 10 questions segment on the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker.
Question number 1. How do the Michigan Wolverines survive the Iowa Hawkeyes home crowd?
Well, it's simple. It's what I alluded to earlier. You got win the turnover battle, limit the big plays from Iowa's offense, and have the mental focus to not get too aloof. Don't take your foot off the pedal like you did against Michigan State, and bury these assholes. That's what you got to do. Keep the crowd out of it. That's how you keep the crowd out of it early and often.
That's right.
Next question.
Question number 2. Will Michigan's running game help their offense?
It will, but it really won't matter. I mean, the way Will Spade has looked, the running game almost looks like a secondary component. But yeah, obviously, with a good running game, you get to take advantage of time possession, milk the clock, tire out the defense, impose your will in all facets. So yeah, definitely it's going to help the offense, which already is gelling as is, look even more cohesive.
Next question.
Question number 3. Will the Wolverines' defense stand tall again?
I firmly believe that. Like I said, hence my prediction of they'll give up no more than 14 points. I was trying to be nice, say 14, because I don't think they're going to give up more than 10. This is how they've looked this year. Like I said, I think
Definitely.
MSU, better and better. MSU was an aberration. They're going to look stronger from here on out until at least Ohio State.
Very solid brick wall.
Next question.
Question number 4. Do the Michigan State Spartans still have a chance to beat the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in order to get their first Big Ten win of the 2016 season, just for the hell of it?
Oh, for the hell of it, yeah. But the only reason I say that is because they're at home. Otherwise, I have no confidence or faith in them. That's how lackluster they have been as a team this year. And with Penn State and Ohio State coming up, I sure as hell don't see them winning those 2 games. Especially when you consider both teams do need to win out. Keep winning to set up their chances to winning the Big Ten East. Because remember, Penn State does owe that tiebreaker potentially over Ohio State. So both teams need to win out, and MSU will be lambs to the slaughter in that one. So if they got to get it done, they damn well better get it done here against Rutgers. Otherwise, hello 2-10.
Yep, no fucking doubt about it.
Next question.
Question number 5. Are the Central Michigan Chippewas likely finished?
If they lose this one, yes, because I don't see them beating Eastern Michigan. I just don't see it. So I think if
Eagles
they
are
want to
bowl eligible. Keep in mind.
Yeah, but still, I think Eastern's going to look more motivated to look more impressive fixture that they've had in recent years. So, chance to beat Central, add on top of it to get that 7th win would be icing on the cake. So I think for Central, like I said, if they do lose this one, I think, yeah, they are done because I just don't see them being Eastern the week after or whatever. So it's very imperative that they get this victory this weekend.
Next question.
Question number 6. Now that the Eastern Michigan Eagles are bowl eligible, like I mentioned before, just now, how will they finish their season?
They'll lose to Northern Illinois, but they'll beat Central Michigan.
Of course.
Next
Give themselves a respectable bowl game.
Yep. Question number 8. Is Red Wings rookie left winger Tyler Bertuzzi even ready for the NHL yet? I don't think so. Anthony Mantha already is, for God's sake.
Mantha is, well, yeah, if you're doing a comparison, obviously you take Mantha, but we're talking about Tyler himself. We'll see. You know, I'm looking on the iffy side. I guess that's me being optimistic, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's only played 2 games in the NHL thus far this season. He's only played 2 games in the NHL thus far this season. I'd give him at least a couple more.
So I'd say give him some time on that one.
Yep.
Let that merit more.
Next question.
Question number 9. Should the Pistons be making excuses on their current road trip? No, sir.
No, absolutely not. It comes down to, can you as a team do better in the paint? Can you defend, show better toughness in your rebounding margin, and just find a way to defend the jump shot. You're getting killed by threes once again, like we saw last year. I don't care that you don't have Reggie Jackson. You still got you still have the rest of your starting 5. You know, including Tobias Harris. You know, you got Andre Drummond improving more of his free throws. Do more for your starting 5, and you have a much better bench than you had last year. So there should be no excuse whatsoever.
Yeah, the Tobias Harris, Marcus Morris duo, they've done a combined excellent job, haven't they?
Yeah, it's one of the best things you can say upon the match their 4 wins, but they got to get more help. Luckily, Reggie will be coming back soon, but still, they need more help. You know, Mr. KCP, Mr. I want $20 million in the offseason next year. We're going to have to freaking prove it, my friend. And same thing, your bench help, you need more of those guys to step up to. The whole team as a whole needs to step up.
Yeah, but KCP, one of the starters, for God's sake, he hasn't done too well. He really needs to pick it up. Except he scored 27 points his last time in Phoenix. So he just needs to keep that up.
Show more consistency.
Yep.
Next question.
Finally, question number 10. Is the Tigers' fire sale starting to develop?
Absolutely. We saw the announcement last month from Avila, which of course was head orders from Chris Illich. Then we saw them deal Cameron Maben. Now you hear the rumors, the murmurs. JD could go. Kinsler could go, even though he just won him a damn gold glove. And also, don't count out Verlander or even Miggy. So yeah, when you hear, whispers of this, it lets you know definitely something is on the up and up. We don't know how it will be enacted, but yeah, I definitely do see this as the fire sale. You can call it the payroll cut or slash. This is an absolute fire sale, and it's developing sooner rather than later.
Bonus question here. Is the fire sale part of the tanking process for next year to fire Brad Ausmus, or is it more of a selling process for Chris Illich to sell the team itself?
I would say on the latter, because the whole thing, if you miss the playoffs anyway next year, you won't be likely bringing Ausmus back anyway, because like I said, it would have been better to just extend him and then fire him. Otherwise, why the hell would you just give him the 1-year option? So what, if you do make the playoffs, then you bring him back? No. I think they're going in the expectation, listen, so it won't cost us money, quote unquote, go through this year, miss the playoffs, don't bring back Brad, we could say, similar to what we saw with Babcock and leaving the Wings, that type of situation. And then it all plays into how Chris Illich wants to make this look as presentable as possible to get a big enough profit if and when he eventually sells the team.
Definitely. We'll see what we see down the road. So for all the listeners and fans out there that wraps up 10 questions. If you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That wraps up episode 239 of the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker. The football in the mitten, the Cram-In edition, actually. Ed, thanks so much again for your help. An excellent job. I will talk to you again next week on Spreaker for episode 240, the next installment of the weekly recap.
Looking forward to it, Taylor. Take care and be safe, my friend. You too, all you listeners as well.
Thanks, you as well, Ed. And before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well. And follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast organization is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section. Also like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcast available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. If there's anything you fans want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips and at EdSmith313. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, and join our Facebook group with the same name. Also, for all the deer hunters out there, it's deer season. Get your deer licenses out. And I hope you all survive with Donald Trump as president, no matter what, even if you voted for him or didn't vote for him. I wish everyone good luck. We all got to stick together. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.